video is about the life of American actress and screenwriter Mae Murray. Mae was born Marie Adrienne Koenig on May 10, 1885. She was the second oldest child of Joseph and Mary Koenig. Her maternal grandparents had immigrated from France, and her paternal grandparents had immigrated from Germany. She had two brothers, William Robert, born in 1889, and Howard Joseph, born in 1884. The family eventually moved to an apartment in the Lower East Side. In May 1896, Joseph Koenig, Murray's father, died from acute gastritis due to alcoholism. To support the family, Mary Koenig took a job as a housekeeper for Harry Payne Whitney. And at the time, she was very young, only 11 years old. Mae adopted the name Mae Murray due to the month of her birth, May, and the fact that she liked to hang out at Murray's restaurant on 42nd Street in New York City. Harry Payne Whitney's house, the house that she would clean, was also located in New York City. The Whitneys were a very powerful family in Gilded Age America. Harry Payne Whitney was the playboy of the family. He established thoroughbred racing stables. His horses won the Kentucky Derby 16 times. He was an established polo player, and the family's wealth came from the Dominion Steel Company and lucrative steel and steamship contracts from the United States Navy. Harry Payne Whitney's father was Secretary of the Navy and so was able to secure choice contracts. Murray began acting on the Broadway stage in 1906 with Vernon Castle. In 1908, she joined the chorus line of the Ziegfeld Follies, moving up to headliner by 1915. She became a star of the club circuit in both the United States and Europe, performing with Clifton Webb, Rudolph Valentino, and John Gilbert as some of her many dance partners. She made her motion picture debut in To Have and to Hold in 1916. She then became a major star for Universal, starring with Rudolph Valentino in The Delicious Little Devil and Big Little Person in 1919. Her skills were not limited to dancing and acting. She was also a screenwriter for several films: Face Value in 1917, Modern Love in 1918, and Danger, Go Slow in 1918. These films were critically acclaimed. They are lost today, but Moving Picture World credited Murray's writing and said, even with a pronounced lack of plausibility in the later incidents, the story may be put down as abundantly entertaining. It has humor and pathos and some excellent character work and should have a very general appeal. Murray was known to incorporate the life stories of some of her contemporaries in her work. For example, when one of her fellow actresses had an affair with the King of Portugal before World War II, she put that into her stories. Face Value was directed by one of her future husbands, Robert Z. Leonard, and so what Murray was doing was really making connections that would last her a lifetime. Unfortunately, some of her storytelling was offensive to some people. For example, Face Value was subject to cuts by city and state film censorship boards. The Chicago Board of Censors required a cut of the young woman coming from behind a post and fainting in a man's arms, and a man stealing a pocketbook. In 1925, Murray, Leonard, and Stahl produced films at Tiffany Pictures, with Souls for Sables from 1925, starring Claire Windsor and Eugene O'Brien, as the first film made by Tiffany. Tiffany operated from 1921 until 1932. It is considered a poverty row studio where films had lower budgets, lesser known stars, and overall lower production values than major studios. Tiffany Pictures also struggled because it lacked a distributor. It would rely on greater distributors like Universal or Metro, which would become MGM, for nationwide distribution. Mae founded Tiffany Productions in 1921 with her then husband, director Robert Leonard, and Maurice Hoffman. Tiffany released 70 features, both silent and sound, 20 of which were westerns. So critics of Murray will say that her film career declined due to her voice in talkies, but this isn't true. She was very comfortable with vocalizations. At one point, Tiffany was booking its films into nearly 2,500 theaters. To produce their films, Tiffany acquired the former Reliance Majestic Studios lot at 4516 Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles in 1927. The last film that Mae Murray would make at Tiffany Pictures was called Circe the Enchantress. And it was their last collaboration. They divorced soon after, and the film was actually recently found in a foreign archive in 2012. The plot of this film is that there is a fallen woman, and after the death of the main character's mother, she becomes a cynical vamp. She falls in love with a surgeon. The surgeon makes clear he does not approve of her lifestyle. This results in her partying even more. She ends up gambling her home away. Realizing her lifestyle isn't appropriate, Circe changes back into a sweet woman. However, she is paralyzed after being hit by a car while saving a child. It is her surgeon ex-boyfriend who heals her. It may be that this film flew too close to the truth of who Mae was. She was definitely a party girl. She enjoyed living it up, and her husband, who was known as a great peacemaker and someone calmer than she was, may have been uncomfortable with it. At her career peak in the early 1920s, Murray, along with other notable personalities such as Cecil B. DeMille, Douglas Fairbanks, Jesse Lasky, and Irving Dahlberg, was a member of the Board of Trustees at the Motion Picture and Television Fund, a charitable organization that still offers assistance and care to those in the motion picture and television industries without resources. 4 decades later, Murray herself received aid from that organization. As Murray's career increased, she was in demand by different directors, and the film that she is really well known for today is The Merry Widow from 1925. In this title role, she was directed by Erich von Stroheim opposite John Gilbert. The waltz scene in The Merry Widow was something that would stick with Murray the rest of her life, and she would perform this waltz again and again at various gigs throughout her life. She made her talkie debut in Peacock Alley, a remake of the earlier 1921 version of Peacock Alley, and in 1931 she was cast in the talkie Bachelor Apartment. After that, she made only one more film, High Stakes. A critical blow to her film career occurred after she married her 4th husband, David Mdivani, a Georgian man of minor aristocratic roots who claimed he was connected to the Romanov family through his father. David Mdivani's brothers, Sergei and Alexis, married actress Paula Negri and the heiress Barbara Hutton, respectively. The couple married on June 27, 1926, and Mdivani became her manager, suggesting that his new wife ought to leave MGM. Murray took her husband's advice and walked out of her contract with MGM, making a powerful foe of studio boss Louis B. Mayer. And you can learn more about the MGM Brothel, and Louis B. Mayer on my channel. Later, she would swallow her pride and plead to return, but Mayer would not hire her. In effect, Mayer's hostility meant that Murray was blacklisted from working for the Hollywood studios. Murray couldn't return to her beloved Tiffany Studios. It had been taken over by Stahl in 1927 and eventually went bankrupt in 1930. Studios were changing, there was a lot of control by major banks, and there weren't small studios that Murray could get involved with like she did in the 1920s. In the 1940s, Murray appeared regularly at Billy Rose's Diamond Horseshoe, a nightclub which specialized in a gay 90s atmosphere, often presenting stars of the past for nostalgic value. Her appearances collected mixed reviews. Her dancing, in particular the Merry Widow Waltz, was well received, but she was criticized for her youthful costumes and heavy makeup application, trying to conceal her age. Costumes were always of incredible importance to Mae Murray. In various photos, she's described as wearing diamond headpieces. I think that these may be actual diamonds, and they may contribute to the fact that Murray wanted her studios named Tiffany, like Tiffany diamonds. In 1946, she taught ballroom dancing to young teenagers at a dance studio in Los Angeles. This studio was located on Crenshaw Boulevard near 48th Street. Her finances continued to collapse, and for most of her later life, she lived in poverty. She was the subject of an authorized biography, The Self-Enchanted, in 1959, written by Jane Ardmore, that has often been incorrectly called Murray's autobiography. Scholars are divided on this. Murray did contribute a lot to this autobiography, but it's not something that she entirely wrote herself. On the evening of February 19, 1964, 78-year-old Murray was found disoriented in St. Louis, thinking she had completed a bus trip to New York. She complained to a Salvation Army officer she had become lost trying to find her hotel, which she had forgotten the name of. She also refused bus fare back to Los Angeles, as she claimed to have a ticket for the remainder of the journey in her purse, if she could find it. People remembered that Murray would often sing the Merry Widow's Waltz to herself while sitting on benches in New York City and Los Angeles. Murray was married 4 times. In September 1908, in Hoboken, New Jersey, while she was appearing in The Follies of 1908, Murray married William M. Schwenker Jr., born 1885, so the same year she was. He was the unemployed son of a brewery supply dealer who cut off his son's allowance upon news of the wedding. They divorced in 1910. On December 18, 1916, she married former dancer and future Olympic bobsled champion Jay O'Brien. He was 2 years her junior. He had been married to Irene Fenwick. After divorcing O'Brien in 1918, she wed movie director Robert Z. Leonard on August 18, 1918. He was 24 years older than she was. Their relationship was one of the most creatively rewarding of Murray's life. They produced so many films together, dozens of films together, many of which are currently lost. And these films show how Murray's creative ability to write impressive screenplays, to put things she knew about her social life into these films, was really rewarding. And so we see her work have special power. Unfortunately, they divorced on May 26, 1925. Robert continued to work in the movies. He was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Director for The Divorcee and The Great Ziegfeld. Ziegfeld Follies would have been a very familiar subject to him due to his ex-wife dancing in the Ziegfeld Follies. Known by his nickname Pop, Leonard was brought in late by MGM as a reliable director who could get its Pride and Prejudice from 1940, starring Greer Garson and Laurence Olivier, onto the big screen. You can learn more about Laurence Olivier and his relationship with his wife on my channel. One of the more unusual credits in his filmography is the film noir thriller The Bribe from 1949, with its sleazy settings, slippery characters, and steamy atmosphere. He died in 1968 in Beverly Hills, California, of an aneurysm, and he is interred near his second wife, Gertrude Olmsted. Leonard married Gertrude Olmsted the year after he divorced Murray, and she was originally signed by the Universal Motion Picture Company. She was a leading lady in Western films, and she also knew Rudolph Valentino, just like Mae Murray did. From 1925 through 1929, Olmsted appeared in 28 films, but with the advent of sound film, her career stalled and she retired from acting in 1929. When we compare Leonard's marriage to Murray's marriage to Mdivani, there are a lot of differences. David Mdivani was born in Batum, Georgia, to a former aide-de-camp of Emperor Nicholas of Russia. He supposedly left Georgia on an Italian ship and escaped to Constantinople, Turkey, during the Russian Revolution. His family reunited in Paris, where his sister Elizabeth and her younger children rented a flat. He then arrived in the United States with his brother Sergei. His mother then died after a family party, and he met Murray while working in the oil fields of Signal Hill, California. He married her when he was 26 and she was 37. Murray was certainly aware that her star was fading when it came to leading roles. However, she was comfortable in her dancing and screenwriting, and so she wasn't acting out of insecurity just yet. Screen idol Rudolph Valentino was best man, and actress Pola Negri was the maid of honor, which you can see here. The Mdivanis then went to Europe for a lengthy honeymoon. This was not entirely advisable. Murray needed to stay around Los Angeles to secure roles, but they did it anyway. Their son, Koran David, was born in Los Angeles or Paris. His mystic name was taken from Muslim scripts. Neither of his parents ever revealed to him where and when he was born, and because of this, he never had a passport. A movie magazine then expressed doubt about the Mdivanis' royal line, saying it was bunk. Sergei responded to this, David's brother, and claimed the title was bestowed on the family by Tsar Irakli II of Georgia, then a monarchy separate from Russia in 1752. The Los Angeles Examiner revealed that Mdivani and Mae were parents of a 16-month-old son whose birth was known to only a few friends of the couple. The child reportedly never leaves the Westwood mansion of the Mdivanis, watched over by a Japanese nursemaid. My wife is a motion picture star, and many people think actresses should not have children, David said to the Los Angeles Examiner. So already we see this sort of secrecy and power plays occurring by David Mdivani. He was then best man to his brother Sergei's marriage to opera singer Mary McCormick in Phoenix, Arizona. Murray filed suit for divorce from Mdivani in 1928. While they were at the Statler Hotel in Buffalo, New York, Murray declared her husband beat her with his fists, locked her in a bathroom, and kept her a prisoner for several hours. On her release, she left the apartment and stayed at another hotel for the night. In March 1928, at their home in Los Angeles, Mdivani was alleged to have beaten his wife in the presence of a servant and cut her lip. He chased her with a loaded gun, used profanity, and called her ugly names. Mdivani's father then died in Paris. Murray also claimed, quote, unreasonable jealousy. Murray and her sister-in-law, Mary McCormick, would discuss their marital troubles. They had receivers appointed for the oil interests owned by their husbands, both asserting that they furnished the money for their investments. Murray then obtained the divorce from Mdivani in 1933. Murray said that her husband did not contest the case, and a default decree was given. Upon a settlement, David was to establish a $5,000 trust fund for the benefit of their 6-year-old son, Koran, of which Murray obtains custody. She didn't ask for any interest in the California community property and waived alimony, testifying about David's jealousy. He showed this by sulking and not speaking to me for days at a time. If I danced more than once with another man, my husband would pull me away, and sometimes he'd pinch me. She then auctioned off her rose-colored beach mansion in Playa del Rey for $11,000. It cost $100,000. Part of the issue with Murray's mansion was David was incredibly jealous of flagstone steps leading up to it. Supposedly these were a gift from one of Murray's lovers, and Mdivani would just go crazy about the fact that these steps existed. So it made living in the mansion very hard for her. Mdivani then appeared with his brother in Los Angeles Superior Court, charged by the state of California with stealing over $30,000 from the Pacific Shore Oil Company, which they organized 4 years ago. His brother Alexis, who was married to heiress Barbara Hutton and subpoenaed as a witness, fled pursuing process servers and took a boat from Seattle to Yokohama. In 1934, Murray declared herself bankrupt. She filed a petition in federal court at Los Angeles listing liabilities of over $228,000 and assets of $324,000, mostly in real estate. Mdivani then took the witness stand in his own defense. He denied that he sold an interest in an oil well to Robert Vignola, motion picture director and state witness. His son, Koran, was then the object to a double mastoid operation performed by brain specialist Dr. Daniel Cunning of New York City. Afterwards, Koran was sent to the home of the surgeon's sister, Bessie Cunning, in Averill Park, upstate New York. I don't know why Murray could not take care of her son. She was certainly given money to do so. I don't know if she was trying to get movie roles and so was out of the house frequently. We know that in the 1940s she was dancing for Billy Rose's Diamond Horseshoe. Billy Rose did not pay Murray very well. He actually cut his own sisters out of his final bequest, and he died with something like $40 million. So I don't know if Murray just wasn't able to negotiate for herself and she relied on her husbands to do it for her. Maybe she wasn't permitted to negotiate for herself. Maybe these were just standard contracts and she was told take it or leave it. I'm not sure, but her son, Koran, would later change his name and adopt the name of his family, Cunning. Mdivani, for his part, couldn't have cared less, and he left with his brother for Spain in 1935. He traveled in the highest style. He would take cruises on Cunard White Star liners from New York to Europe, and when he was in Europe in 1935, he learned of the death of his brother, Sergei, under the heels of his polo pony at Delray Beach, Florida. There were then rumors dropped in the newspapers that Whitney Bourne was going to marry David Mdivani, and then it was Tony Lanier that was going to marry David Mdivani, and one of Mdivani's family members became a Bolshevik and was executed in 1937. This caused some furor in the press, where David had to deny that this man was related to him. He started an affair with French actress Arletty in Venice, Italy, and then in 1937, he expected his engagement to blonde Muriel, quote, Honey Johnson, to be announced soon as a result of a whirlwind romance. Honey Johnson denied this rumor upon her arrival from Italy, and her father, who opposed the romance, was standing watchfully by. She said there was absolutely no truth to the engagement reports. I met Mdivani, but that's all. In the end, she married Richard Berlin, New York Magazine executive. Mdivani was then spotted escorting Ethel and Rose Davies in 1938. He then decided to drill for more oil in Bakersfield, California, by purchasing 2 boilers. His mistress Arletty became pregnant in 1939, but she refused to keep the child, saying that she knew too much about the whole family and Polo Negri and Mae Murray's terrible situations. So Mae Murray's bankruptcy really impacted the other women in Mdivani's life. It seems like Mdivani was a fan of spreading rumors to the press and then trying to get women to deny these rumors. However, David never really let go of Arletty, and until his death, he would visit her in Paris. Mdivani only got 1/6 of his brother's will. Most of it went to his widow, Louise Astor Van Allen Mdivani. In 1939, Mae Murray wept convulsively in Los Angeles court as she gave a deposition in her suit to force him to support their son. She claimed she was impoverished while her polo-playing former husband had $1 million. She sought $12,000 a year to support their son. She said, "He took my stocks and bonds and money and my whole life." Mdivani responded that he only had $300,000 and claimed that he had sent her approximately $1,500 since their divorce in 1933. This was blatant violation of the court order that established he had to establish a $5,000 trust for Koran. He had these really brutal attorneys, and in 1939 they obtained an order for Murray to show cause why Koran should not be brought to California and to disclose Koran's whereabouts. So Murray was hiding where her son was. She refused to reveal the whereabouts of Koran, and she said that she was afraid that Mdivani would take him from her forcibly. In 1939, in Albany, Murray sought to regain custody of her son from Bessie Cunning of Averill Park, who refused to give up the 12-year-old boy. Koran had been staying with the Cunning family after his surgery. He had gotten accustomed to upstate New York and the Cunning family. So I also believe that Koran did not necessarily want to go back to his parents. There was a lot of litigation, clearly very difficult situation with his father being frequently mentioned in the papers with other women. It just wasn't a good environment for a young boy to grow up in. Murray testified in a sobbing voice that her divorce from Mdivani had cost her her fortune. She claims that she relinquished Koran to the Cunnings, and the Cunnings fought for the boy. They fought for Koran. For an hour, Murray granted a visit with Koran in the courtroom, and she presented him with a statuette of the Immaculate Infant Jesus of Prague. Afterwards, she told him that they wanted her to talk to him inside the house, quote, where they could hear me, but she wanted to speak to him on the lawn alone. So we see Mae Murray as really this terrified woman. Dr. Daniel Cunning testified in court that in 1935 he sent Koran to the suburban Cunning home at the urgent request of Murray. The press notes that she seeks Koran's custody after instituting a California suit against his father for $12,000 annual maintenance for the boy. Prince David in turn sought his son's custody, and the court instructed he be presented in court. By 1940, Murray had lost the court fight for her son's custody. Justice Bergen decided Koran should be kept in Cunning's custody in Averill Park, New York. Koran ruled against his mother during questioning in judicial chambers. The Cunnings declared their belief that the money love, not mother love, is Murray's motive in seeking custody of the child. This is pretty harsh. We know that Murray experienced violence and fraud at the hands of Mdivani, and I think she was just trying to do what she thought was best. Murray said she was going to move back to California and was determined to make a comeback in films and establish a home so she could regain custody of her son. Murray didn't know what to do, and she sued Mdivani and said that she had $3 million and it was all gone. It had been gone since 1926. Los Angeles Superior Judge agreed to hear her case in 1940 and permitted her to sue Mdivani for $1,000 a month so that she might establish a home for Koran. The press did not let up and said that in 10 months, Koran will be legally able to decide among Mdivani's home in Westwood Village, California, the Cunning's home in Averill Park, New York, or his penniless mother in 1940. Murray then traveled to the bedside of her son in Albany, where he was rushed to hospital for an emergency appendicitis operation. This did not persuade Koran, and he became Daniel Michael Cunning through adoption in 1940. In court, she was ridiculed for still wanting to support her child on $400 a month. When asked if she could cook, she replied, "I can learn, I'm not stupid." Mdivani had his teeth knocked out in 1940 by a polo teammate's mallet, and he was taken to a hospital. I think that might have been purposeful. He then got into a fight with Mike Romanoff of Russia at a party for Gloria Vanderbilt and Pat DiCiccio in 1941. He also then got in a fight with Bert Friedlob in 1944 over wanting to kiss the hand of actress Marion O'Brien. In 1944, Mdivani married Virginia Sinclair, daughter of Harry Sinclair, founder of the Sinclair Oil Corporation in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mdivani was 44, she was 29. His second son, Michael David, was born in New York in 1945, and his son, Daniel Michael Cunning, announced that he would marry a local girl, Patricia Ann Maloney of Cohoes, New York, a telephone office girl, in 1950, and they married at St. Agnes Roman Catholic Church. Both of them were in their 20s. Neither David nor Mae Murray attended the ceremony. Dr. Daniel Cunning was his best man. In 1951, Mdivani's wife filed a missing persons report because he failed to come home. She claims he left their Bel Air home on a business trip and hasn't been seen since. He was found in La Quinta Hotel in Palm Springs. He then started writing false checks. In 1955, he wrote a $3,000 check to El Rancho Hotel and it bounced. In 1956, Mdivani and his wife separated, and then in 1959, his younger son was reported to have been accumulating a lot of debt. Mdivani defended him and said that he would inherit an oil fortune from his grandfather, the late Harry Sinclair. His wife didn't like this, and in 1959, Mdivani was sued for divorce in Los Angeles. She charged cruel and inhuman treatment and obtained an order restraining him from molesting her and from disposing any of her property. She sought custody of her son, claiming she and David separated 3 years ago. So we see echoes of the Murray trial. He then, interestingly, the divorce suit was dropped, but he and his wife were separated again by 1963. The divorce was finalized in 1964. She testified that he harassed her continually. "I had no peace of mind," she said. A property settlement provided for division of income from a Santa Barbara County, California oil lease between Mdivani and his wife and their son. Murray is reported found penniless by 1964, and in 1965 she died at age 75 in poverty at the Motion Picture Country home in Hollywood. She succumbed to a long illness that followed a stroke and a heart ailment. Her only living relative was her son, now Daniel Cunning, who is reported operating a shoe store in Troy, New York. The life of Daniel Michael Cunning is very interesting. His obituary is incredibly sweet. He obtained his Bachelor of Science from the College of the Holy Cross, class of 1947. He frequently attended reunions, and he began his career in New York City in advertising. So, like his mother, he spent a lot of time in New York City. He then returned to Troy, New York to manage Cunning Shoes Incorporated. He spent the majority of his career as a financial advisor with First Albany First Union Financial Services and retired from Smith Barney in 2004. He had a strong work ethic and loved his work. He had integrity and honesty with which he handled client interactions, and this inspired others in the industry. He was a faithful communicant of Our Lady of Victory Church in Troy, New York, and more recently, St. Joseph's Church in Hillsborough, New York. His faith and volunteering were of great importance throughout his life. The Community Hospice Foundation of Rensselaer County honored him with their Heart of Hospice Award in 2010 for his long-standing and admirable service to hospice care in the Rensselaer community. Like his mother's previous husband, he was a lifelong golfer and lover of sports, like his father, Mdivani. He was a member of the Country Club of Troy for 66 years and served as its president from 1965 to 1967. He was a dancer, just like his mother, and a dapper dresser, just like his mother. He was friend to all God's creatures. A lot of mention is made on how much he loved animals, and he was admired and respected for his integrity, honesty, and genuine kindness of the heart. I thought that this was a great obituary because you see threads of Mae Murray's personality in his life. While the two were estranged, Murray certainly fought for him and loved him. And I also really like the references to his dedication to upstate New York. He passed away in 2018 in a time when Troy, New York was revitalizing itself. And it's gone from this little backwater to a remarkable city on the Hudson River. So it's people like Daniel Michael Cunning who dedicate themselves to one place who really make these cities remarkable places.